Picture this, you have a chronic illness like CFS, and you wake up one morning feeling amazing. Instantly, you feel excited, because this means you can do whatever you want to do for the day. So you do, you go and you have fun, clean your house, walk the dog, and then you wake up the next day 10 times worse than you were the day before last. This is the boom and bust cycle, a very common struggle in chronic illness. So let's talk about it. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Rosie, hi. I'm a disabled UK-based counsellor specialising in supporting disabled, neurodiverse and chronically ill people with managing their mental health. Alongside private counselling, I make these videos to support those who are struggling with their mental health. These videos are here to offer you psychoeducation and some support, especially for those who can't access counselling right now. But as I always say, they aren't a replacement for professional therapy, so please bear that in mind. Today we're going to talk about something that so many chronically ill and disabled people experience, the boom and bust cycle. This is the pattern where you finally have a good day or a burst of energy, so you try to catch up on everything and anything you haven't been able to do, only to crash afterwards. Sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks. And if this happens to you, I want you to know that you're not lazy, dramatic, weak, failing at managing your health. This cycle is incredibly common in people living with chronic illness, chronic fatigue, or pain-related conditions, neurodivergence as well, and burnout. The difficult thing about the boom and bust cycle is that it often feels very logical while it's happening. You finally have the energy, so of course you want to use it. You want to clean the house, answer emails or texts, catch up on work, see friends, do laundry, shower properly, organize your life, go out for a coffee, maybe even feel a little kind of normal again, just for a few hours. But the problem is that many chronically ill bodies don't work like batteries that fully recharge overnight. A good day doesn't necessarily mean that your condition has disappeared or that your body can suddenly tolerate unlimited activity. Sometimes it just means that you temporarily have slightly more energy available than usual. And when you use all of that energy at once, your body usually responds by forcing you to rest afterwards. So let's break this cycle down a little bit together to understand it more clearly. First, what is the boom and bust cycle? Well, I feel like I've already explained this a little, but we'll go through it properly now. The boom is the period where you push yourself beyond your sustainable limits. This might look like cleaning the whole house, as I said, in one day, or doing all of your errands at once, socializing for hours on end because you finally feel able to. Working through breaks is another one. Ignoring pain or fatigue signals. Never done that before. Staying up late because you feel productive. Trying to make up for lost time due to your illness. Then comes the bust. This is the crash that comes afterwards. That crash can involve all sorts of things, but some examples are intense fatigue, pain flares, brain fog, difficulty concentrating, sensory overwhelm, emotional exhaustion as well as physical exhaustion, irritability, disrupted or rubbish sleep, needing days in bed to recover, feeling hopeless or frustrated. This last point being a very important bit of fuel for the cycle to continue, which we'll dive into a bit later in this video. For some people, the bust happens immediately. For others, it appears the next day, which can make it harder to connect the crash to the overactivity that caused it. In my experience, some crashes can take place days after overdoing it, and it really depends on the person and the illness. And because the crash feels awful, many people rest heavily until they regain some energy, and then they repeat the cycle all over again. So why do chronically ill people often overdo it on good days? One reason is honestly very simple. Being ill is extremely restrictive. When you spend days, weeks, months, or even years unable to function the way that you want to, having access to energy can feel exciting, emotional, and urgent. It's a great feeling to suddenly have access to the world in a way that is very meaningful. You may feel pressure internally to catch up on your responsibilities. Prove you're not lazy, either to others or to yourself. Take advantage of the moment before it disappears. Reassure other people that you're doing better. Making the most out of rare opportunities. Feeling productive or useful again. As a counsellor, I can say with some confidence that there is usually also grief hidden underneath this. Usually, overdoing it isn't just about getting practical tasks done. It's about desperately wanting to reconnect with the version of yourself you were before illness or disability changed your life. And I think that's something that people don't talk about enough. I've spoken about it a few times on this channel. I will continue to waffle on about it because it's very important. A good day can create a feeling of hope. It can briefly make you feel like maybe you're getting your old life back. So naturally, many people push themselves because they miss feeling capable. There's also guilt, so much guilt and shame too. Many chronically ill people internalize the message that rest has to be earned, that if you can do something, you should do something, and that their worth is tied to productivity. So when energy appears, even temporarily, it can feel morally wrong not to use all of it. But unfortunately, bodies with chronic illness often punish inconsistency, and that's where sustainable pacing becomes so important. Let's reflect together a little more on the emotional side of the boom and bust cycle. I did allude to this earlier on. What makes this cycle especially painful is that it can become emotionally exhausting too. You might notice thoughts racing through your mind like, I've ruined everything again. Why can't I just be consistent? Or I should be able to handle this. Other people manage to do more than I can. I'm back at square one again. Horrible thought to have. And over time, these kinds of thoughts create shame, hopelessness, and anxiety around activity, or fear of making plans altogether. Some people become frightened of using energy because they associate activity with punishment afterwards. Others swing in the opposite direction and continue pushing through the crashes because they feel they have no choice. And both responses are understandable. I want to be clear about that. They both come from a sense of damned if you do, damned if you don't. There is no magic ingredient that you can add to your smoothie that will allow you to function in the same way as healthy people. Well, okay, prescription medication might help you with that. So if you have any, please do take it. If your body repeatedly feels unpredictable, it's very hard to build trust with yourself. The truth is that you can be certain in your mind that you do have the energy for something, only to belatedly realize that you absolutely did not. What I would observe is that people frequently feel frustrated by this. They take it as some kind of failing, when really what it is information about your body. If we treat it as data, which I know is hard to do sometimes, but if we do, we can start to figure out roughly where the parameters are of your energy and what influences it. It's worth thinking about early warning signs that you're heading towards a crash. One of the most useful things you can learn is how to spot your early warning signs before you fully hit exhaustion, because ideally pacing starts way before the crash, not afterwards. Some common warning signs include the following. There might be physical signs, heaviness in your body, for example, or tiredness, shakiness and weakness in your limbs, increased pain sensitivity, headaches, dizziness, that's one I feel reasonably frequently, feeling physically wired or overly alert, needing to sit down more often. There can also be cognitive signs as well, so that might be struggling to find words, or difficulty concentrating, bit of brain fog, forgetfulness, reading over the same sentence repeatedly, or feeling mentally foggy, as I said, that brain fog feeling. There can be emotional signs too, like irritability, sudden tearfulness, anxiety, feeling really overwhelmed unusually quickly, frustration, emotional numbness as well. That's a really important one. And as I said, high anxiety in some people. There might also be some sensory signs. If lights feel too bright, for example, or sounds are becoming irritating or difficult to manage. Touch feels very uncomfortable, and increased sensory overwhelm. And one important thing to mention here is that sometimes adrenaline can mask exhaustion temporarily. So unfortunately, you may feel energetic while your body is actually overextending itself. This happens a lot, I've noticed, with clients during social events, stressful situations, work deadlines, or exciting activities. Then the crash arrives afterwards, once your nervous system starts to slow down, there's no sensory data to process. And this is why learning your own patterns matter so much. And resting earlier really does matter. A lot of people rest only once they physically cannot continue anymore. I talked about this in the 3Ps video on the principles of pacing, but recovery often takes much longer at that point. Resting earlier and more consistently for most people tends to be more effective than collapsing afterwards. And I know that's very frustrating advice sometimes, especially if your life responsibilities don't easily allow for it. But even small pauses can help to regulate your nervous system and reduce the intensity of crashes. This might look like sitting down before you feel desperate to do so, taking sensory breaks, stopping activities halfway through, spreading tasks across several days, alternating physical and mental activities, reducing your speed. And one that I know many people really do struggle with, myself included, is allowing yourself to leave things unfinished. I talk about pacing pretty extensively in that video, so if you're struggling to figure out how to pace, or you aren't sure what pacing is, then I would go and watch that one after you've watched this one. Emotionally, one of the hardest parts of choosing to rest before you burn and crash is accepting that sustainability may need to matter more than intensity, because consistency is often more protective than occasional bursts of productivity followed by a complete collapse. Which brings me on to an important point. Be careful about making up for lost time. This is a huge factor. Many people feel a pressure to compensate for time that they've spent ill or in a flare-up, and that can fuel the cycle. You may try to overachieve on better days because you feel guilty about resting on worse ones, but your body does not usually experience this as balance. In a strange way, and please don't take this too literally, but your body gets punished for having a good day if you overdo it, and you propel yourself back into a bust. If anything, overdoing it often increases instability. And many people place high value on productivity. You do not need to earn back your worth after periods of illness. Resting is not a moral failure, and having limitations does not make you less deserving of care, dignity, or compassion. It just means that you're human. So let's think briefly about building a more sustainable relationship with your energy. Recovering from the boom and bust cycle often involves learning to tolerate doing less before your body forces you to. And emotionally, that can be extremely difficult. I speak to clients about this all the time because it means leaving tasks incomplete, disappointing unrealistic expectations that you or other people have, saying no sometimes, accepting limitations that you didn't choose, and pacing even on good days. None of that is easy, and a frustration I frequently speak about with my clients is around that not choosing it thing. They didn't choose to live life with the need to take this level of care over their energy. It's a really frustrating thing to feel limited in your ability to do stuff, even if it's stuff you hate doing. I don't think that healthy people always are capable of grasping how frustrating it can be to not be able to wash the dishes. No one thinks that they would miss it. if they suddenly couldn't do it anymore. But you would be surprised. Protecting your future energy is still valuable, even if nobody else sees the effort that's involved. The reality is that a sustainable life is not built through constant overexertion, and that is true whether you have a chronic illness or if you do not. It's instead built through listening to your body consistently enough that you stop having to recover from overdoing it all the time. And that process takes practice. It's not something that you will always manage to calculate correctly. Sometimes you will overdo it by accident. Be gentle on yourself if you do. All we can ever do in our lives is our best, after all. So if you've made it this far, I want to thank you so much for being here. If this episode has resonated with you, please take a second to like it, subscribe, share it, do all of those things. You never know, if you share it with somebody else, they might find it really beneficial as well. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Do you struggle with the boom and bust cycle? What warning signs normally tell you that you're heading towards burnout or a crash? We make a lot of videos here about chronic illness, disability, neurodivergence, and mental health on this channel, and your feedback genuinely helps to shape future videos. If you're interested in having some private counselling with me on a one-to-one basis, you can check the description for information about that. Thank you so much for watching, and take really good care.